Hello, everybody. Welcome to Where is the Line, where we explore the gray areas of life. My name is Jane Liu, and I am with my co-host, Sabrina. Sabrina, how are you? How's your day been?
Hey Jane, yeah, it's going great. 2024 is off to a decent start. I'm actually exploring a potential career pivot into UX research. So I've been busy taking a lot of courses. And yeah, if there's any listeners out there that are in that field that is willing to talk to me about their experience, very selfishly, please slide in my DMs. I would be very grateful. But yeah, that's been my biggest update. How about you?
I'm good. Speaking of the UX stuff, I remember that was one of your ins for the year. So I'm very proud of you. I feel like you're really making progress. My only progress so far has been drinking water in the morning before coffee, which with our guests today, please drink water before coffee. Apparently, that's very good for your skin. So, a great investment in your health. But yeah, I've been working on that. And then today, things have been very chaotic today. I'm not gonna lie. I had back-to-back meetings all afternoon and most of the morning. So, I'm very glad to kind of wind down a little bit and talk to our speakers today. Sabrina, do you want to introduce our guests?
Yes, I am buzzing for today's conversation. We are going to be talking about boundaries versus control in a relationship. We're giving the people what they wanted. For the first time in Where's the Line history, we're going to have the male and the female perspective in one virtual setting, which is so exciting. Obviously, the Where's the Line mission is to provide different perspectives. And today, for the first time, we will have that live happening. So I'm couldn't be more excited. And for that, I'm so honored to have two of my very favorite people here from the great state of Minnesota, my best friend, Paige McKibbon, and another really close friend, Ben Mezzenga. I've had the pleasure of meeting both of them really like through the last year. Paige has been putting up with me for almost a year now. And Ben, we also got a chance to meet through kickball, which is very popular here in the cities. So excited to have them both on. So I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, share a little bit more about you, who you are, what's your current relationship status, any previous relationship statuses that you want to share, and then we'll go from there.
Ben Mezzenga, like Sabrina said, currently single, and I do sales for a software company here in Minneapolis. Grew up in Minneapolis, my whole life, went to the University of Minnesota. You could say I'm a Minnesota kid through and through. I'm 27 years old, and past relationship history, I feel like have been pretty mature relationships.
All right, I'll jump in. So yeah, I'm Paige. Uh, I am almost dirty 30, looking forward to a new chapter in my life. So old one here, just kidding, still very young. I am currently single and past relationship history, it's complicated.
Great. Well, thank you both for the introduction. So, the way that today will work, we're going to start off with a little bit of a game show. So, we're going to be talking about boundaries versus control and where's the line in a relationship. So, we'll be prompting you with some certain scenarios and would love to hear your perspective. So, the first one, when you're in a relationship, being friends with exes, how is that perceived? I'll let's maybe start with Paige and then let Ben chime in afterwards.
I think relationships are definitely something you have to make compromises on, whether they're friendships or relationships. And I think being friends with exes is definitely one of those that you have to get into when you're entering a new relationship. I definitely think there's a gray area here. Where is the line is a very great topic for that. I think it really depends on the history with that ex. I think when it comes to like actual long-term relationships, there's healthy ways to go about it. But if it's somebody who you just had a fling with or were just hooking up with, maybe ditch that person and focus on your new relationship. I think that's kind of the healthy approach. I never say you have to like be disrespectful to an ex. Obviously, you see them out you're in similar social circles, that's a very different circumstance. But when it comes to, you know, regularly checking up on how their cat's doing or something, maybe that's not appropriate.
Yeah. If we want to put a line somewhere, so yeah, so I think the line is if you're friends before you started dating. I think if you're dating someone and, you know, your ex is around more often, it makes more sense to me if they were like they're, you know, a childhood best friend. We grew up, we dated for a little bit, figured out it didn't work, or whether it be college or whatever. If they were friends before, then I think it's a little bit more okay if they're closer. Granted, there obviously should be not too much, you know, there should be any flirtation. I think as long as you know, the significant other is not being hidden, that's a big thing too. A lot of times when you talk to your ex, you might feel like, or you might be in the same place as your current girlfriend or boyfriend, and you're like, wait, am I even here right now while you're talking to your ex? And that's not a good sign. I think if something like say I'm dating someone and I run into my ex, I think the mature thing is to be like, hi, I want to introduce you to so-and-so, my girlfriend. Like, don't just say this is just my friend, or don't just say her name, say it's my girlfriend. Just because that way you're not trying to hide anything. You're not trying to put out a vibe that, you know, might not be true.
I actually was listening to a different podcast about a similar topic not that long ago, and I heard a really valid point of just even being friends with like the opposite sex, of just setting a boundary of like, you know, right now when I'm single, you can call me at 2 a.m. But when I have a partner, you're not going to necessarily be able to call me at 2 a.m. and like setting those boundaries. But I think it also kind of depends on the comfort level of both partners, and you have to respect what the other person feels too.
And it's different if the ex is still in love with you too. Because the ex is
True.
obviously still in love with, you know, my girlfriend, then I'm going to be a little bit more like, hey, like, don't spend too much time, because, you know, the more time you spend talking to them, the more in love they're going to get. And that just either isn't nice to them because you're just leading them on, or you want to keep them on the hook because you don't think we're going to make it, or if in case we break up. So you kind of have them as a plan B. That's not a situation I want to be in either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like, you guys seem very mature on this one here, like very sort of communication, boundaries, and then having that level of trust, right, can only come from communication. So
I also will say too, like the timing of that relationship
Mm.
relative to where you are today, right? Like if this person was a childhood, like Ben, you mentioned childhood, we dated for blah, blah, blah period of time. Like, fine, that's totally fine. But if you guys dated yesterday, there's probably like emotion still attached, right? Whether it's anger or like whatever, or like love maybe. But there's gonna be emotion still attached to some of the more relevant or like the more recent relationships. And I feel like this might just be me, but I am more comfortable with an ex from a long time ago where there really just isn't anything there anymore versus a more recent person that they may have dated. That's at least from my perspective. It does make a difference for me.
mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that. I can relate. I think it's easier if it was a long time ago. I think one more thing I thought of to add, just to put in context from like my dating history, I had an ex that I didn't agree with this particular topic on specifically. And, you know, their perspective was, well, you know, we didn't end on bad terms, so we should be able to communicate. And I can agree with that to a certain standard, but I think it really just, it has to do with, yeah, to points Ben made, the context of, you know, what are you talking about? What feelings are still there? And I think timing does matter too, because, you know, are we talking best friends, or are we talking just like, hey, we go to the same bar every now and then?
Yeah. All right. How do you, when you're in a relationship, how do you feel about going through your partner's phone? Ben, let's start with you here.
it's kind of a catch-22 because I think a person should always act like they're okay if you do go through their phone, but as soon as you want to go through their phone, then that's like when it should be that's when there's issues there. And if it comes to a point where someone's like, hey, I need to go through your phone, and then it's a bigger trust issue. And maybe it is, and it's one of those things where depending where the relationship is at, like if we're years in and I'm in love, of course I'm going to be like, okay, let's figure out why you're coming this way. What did I do to you to make you not trust me, want to go through my phone? Figure that out. Then if it makes her feel better, then yes, she can go through my phone. If then it's not like a constant thing where she's like weekly checkups on my phone or anything like that, because that's just not healthy. But I understand there's situations, things that happen that make someone maybe, just feel better if they do it that one time. Now, if this is only, months into a relationship, then that kind of tells you a little bit about where they are in their, trust issues or trusting ability. And if they want to do routine checks or anything like that, that's a no-no. I think the only excuse to be able to check through someone's phone is if they are really worried, and it would make them feel better, then yes. But it's, kind of like I said, a catch-22, because it's like you don't want to say no to them being able to go through their phone because then you look guilty, but you are going down a slippery slope if you enable that behavior thinking that they're letting them check your phone, if that makes sense.
I feel fairly similarly to the sense of there shouldn't necessarily be anything you have to hide. I can understand the context of wanting to have privacy. But to me, it's not necessarily a matter of like privacy. I think personally, I am not someone that's gonna like go through your phone when you're sleeping or like something, but I think that's not appropriate. I think where it can be appropriate is if you're having an open discussion and actually asking to see that. Like if I were in a point where I felt uncomfortable and wanted to see a conversation because of something that I've heard, I'm not going to sit there and go through it by myself. Like I want to go through it with my partner. I personally am not necessarily thinking about someone's phone unless they do something on said phone that I find out about. So it's not really something I'm diving into.
To kind of add on top of that too, I feel like at least me in a relationship, like if I'm in bed sleeping with someone, I'm one of those people, I scroll through the TikTok before bed.
Yeah.
I'm, if I'm sitting next to them, like, and I have a text I need to do, I'm like texting them or whatever. Like there's going to be situations where my significant other can see into my phone. Now, I think things happen that makes them want to see my phone. If that's what I'm doing, I'm scrolling through TikTok and all of a sudden we're laying in bed and then she sees me kind of like this to my phone, like turn it away from her. Like that's where I'm like, okay. And that's where it all comes into like, okay, that's where the trust issue starts. It's not her being crazy wanting to see my phone. It's me acting a certain way to make her not trustworthy, which kind of adds to the whole big picture of, is it checking the phone the real issue, or is there a trust that I was doing something that, made her feel like she was needing to check my phone?
This is really going to show what our previous experiences and our previous relationships were like, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like with people who have gotten hurt because of this, like of course you're going to want to see, because you don't want to get hurt another time because of the exact same problem. And like even Paige, I think earlier you might have alluded to this, is like earlier in the relationship, I'll speak to my own relationship. Earlier in my relationship with my now husband, like I was nervous and I was constantly like, what are you giggling at? Like, who are you texting? Right? Like just all these things. And it really was nothing. And if anything, like now in our relationship, it's a lot more trusting, but it took a lot of time to kind of get here. And in the beginning, I was a lot more jealous. I was like more nervous and insecure. I think like, Paige, you were maybe discussing that a little earlier.
Yeah, I think like those early on, like it's not even necessarily about like wanting to go through or look at the phones. It's more like the curiosity of like, to your point, oh, who are you texting that's making you giggle? Or what is that you're watching? Or like, it's really more like that curiosity rather than like I need to see this.
How do you feel about when your partner, while in a relationship, engages with other girls on social media, on Instagram, and engaging could be, which I would love your perspective, where's the line? Whether it's following, liking, sliding into people's DMs, or sending like fire emojis or what, all kinds of emojis. How do you feel about that? Like where do you see the line? Like is following okay? Is liking okay? Where do you draw the line?
This is one of those things where I don't really have an opinion. If my significant other is like, I don't want you liking pictures from other girls, okay, then I'm not gonna, not that I do it anyway. Like it wouldn't be that much of a change in my life. And then as well, I think it also is a little bit if they're like concerned that I look at pictures of girls that I don't know. I think it's different if I'm like Instagram stalking a girl that, you know, either I used to date or, you know, a cute girl that I'm friends with or just met or something like that. If it's a celebrity or if it's, you know, some Instagram model or some, not that I do this anyway, but just in terms of talking about where there might be issues, I think that's a good point where the line is, where if they have no clue who they are or have never met them in person, then that might be more okay. But again, I'm curious to see what Paige says about it.
Ben, sorry, one more thing though, to probe you a little bit. If someone were to go through your followers, and again, I haven't done that, but if your partner went through your followers and asked you to unfollow certain accounts, sounds like you don't have a lot of people that you follow that have those sort of sexy, promiscuous things. But if she was getting insecure about that, well, how would you have that conversation? Like, would you unfollow, or would you refuse, or just have a conversation?
If this is the only thing of kind of jealousy that I see, then I'm fine with it. I mean, if there's other things that she's kind of alluded to with other social situations where she's kind of shown jealousy a little bit, then it might just probe another question where it's like, hey, do you trust me? Like, where's this jealousy coming from? But if it's like she just is, because I know how Instagram can be, because all these girls are, you know, filtered and edited, and you know, it literally shows the best of the best. So I understand, you know, body image issues and things like that is a big problem with social media. So if that's the case, I'm totally fine not looking at those and, you know, unfollowing those people, which I could definitely see being really the only thing that someone doesn't like. But if it is one of a few things that show jealousy, then I'm like, okay, let's have a bigger conversation.
Ben kind of took the words out of my mouth. From talking from the perspective of context is everything. Like who are these people? Who are these said women that my partner is liking? I feel like, yeah, if it's some random girl who they will never meet in real life, I might still be sitting here like, why? I mean, one thing, why are you liking it? But not gonna care as much as if it's like the girl we see at the bar every weekend. That's maybe inappropriate in my opinion. And it also depends on like, what are they commenting from my perspective. And I know, Sabrina, I've had conversations with you in the past about this topic. It takes time to like a photo or to comment something. I am not oblivious that my partner might find other women attractive. Ooh, had to say that out loud. That hurt a little. Just kidding. No, but I mean, I'm not oblivious to that fact, but sometimes things are better left in your mind. And so like, maybe that seems harsh, but I'm like, you can look at a picture and not like it or not comment on it, you know, and just have your thought in your head. For me, it's kind of like, if you're liking, and maybe this will bring context for you, Ben, but like, if you're liking a ton of different girls' photos, it might give me context of like the things you're into. And especially if I feel like she's like different than me, it's kind of, it starts to create like doubts in yourself. And I understand that has to kind of do with your own like self-worth and etc. But it's why put your partner through that like feeling if you don't have to. But yeah, I think DMing, no. Liking, maybe. Very depends on the situation. And it really depends on what the DM is too, maybe, question mark.
Well, it's all about what's the intent.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have said something that, because I know context of the situation, I'm fine with, because I know the intent wasn't romantic or something like that.
Yeah. Like, is a mutual friend in the photo and you're like, oh, I didn't know you knew this person. Maybe that's okay. But like, oh my gosh, you went to this place. Tell me more about it. Like, even though that sounds innocent, it's like, why do you want to know from that person? Go experience it for yourself.
Obviously, Paige, you and I talked about this topic, and I do think it's also important, and for our listeners, if this bothers you, have a conversation open without accusing, right? Like, have a conversation with your partner and tell them where you're coming from and how it may make you feel insecure based on XYZ things in the past, and see how they react. Like, if they are continuing or double downing on liking and all that, that's maybe something to pay closer attention to. So I think it's just really interesting. When you first get to know someone, you don't really, they were single, right? So they were liking and doing stuff that they
Oh yeah,
were
you don't
very
want to
much
see my
eligible.
Instagram Discover page. If a girl
Well,
looked at my Instagram Discover page, it would not bode well for me.
Right. But like, you have every right to do that, right? But
Yeah,
now that you're
exactly.
in a relationship, like having that
It should
conversation
be
and
different.
expressing what you need and then seeing how they react, I think is key.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Sabrina. And I think, yeah, to your point, when you're in a new relationship, obviously you're not going to expect your partner to be doing these things. This kind of comes with time of developing the relationship, and it definitely is a communication. I know you mentioned to Ben, or maybe Ben mentioned it, about kind of like who they're following. I'll be honest too, the context really, who it is does kind of matter, because if it's people we know, I'm more likely to see those comments and those likes, because that random Instagram model, I highly doubt she's going to come up on my page. I'm never going to know you liked her picture or commented on it if I'm not going through your phone. And like, as the last topic was, like, I'm never going to see that, but I am going to see the people who are, yeah, our mutual friends. And I think like, it really depends. Like, I'm okay with my partner liking pictures that are like group photos or like things that are really innocent. But to Ben's point, if it's a thirst trap, especially if it's one of our friends, I hate to put this like opinion about females out there, but women know how women think. And I'm not saying every woman is this way, but whenever a girl, especially like when we're single, get a like or a comment or a DM, we're like, oh yay, he's interacting with it. He must like me, or he must think I'm cute. And it's like, knowing that that's how, we might take that, that's kind of where the line starts to be drawn, because I don't want some woman thinking that, my partner is feeling that way about them. Maybe he does, but again, this kind of goes back to keep it in your head. We don't need to be expressing that, because I think that's just like a respect for your current relationship.
I've had situations where I told my husband, I was like, "Oh, why are you looking at this person's account that frequently?" And like, it's particularly friends we both know. So exactly, Ben, to your point, like, listen, if you're liking a model's picture, like, good luck, honey. I wish that for you. Okay, it's not gonna happen. But like, if it's somebody that's actually reachable, I think that's where it gets really tricky, because then that's where the insecurity comes from, right? Like, this person is a mutual friend. We both know this person, and this person they're single. So like, yeah, they're posting thirst traps, right? Like, that is their right to do that. That is totally fine. But it does make me uncomfortable, is not the right word, but just nervous when I see like my partner liking their picture, and my partner can like everybody else's pictures too, but it doesn't bother me. But if it's a thirst trap, but it happens to be your friend, it's like, should you have liked it, right? The good thing is, and I think this is maybe what helps with like the security in our relationship, is he's not a big social media guy. So maybe the advice here is just like, don't be with people who are big social media people to begin with. You'll feel a lot safer. But
The
I
amount
have
of
had
people I see on social like dating apps that are like, what are you looking for? Guys who don't have Instagrams or
yes.
Snapchat or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You just feel so much safer. But yeah, I've had to like ask him. I mean, it only happened one time, but like I've had to ask him, I'm like, oh, why are you, and then he was very receptive. And like after that, he would not like the picture. He wouldn't bring this person's like life updates up to me, even though we're all mutual friends, like just to try not to trigger me. So I think, Sabrina, I think you mentioned it's like how do they respond is very important. If they get very defensive, which I can't imagine, like people could get very defensive, especially if
Mhm.
it's just a friend, right? Like I'm just liking a friend's picture. Um, but it's very tricky.
But I'm proud of you for having that conversation with Kyle, your husband, who is a
Yeah.
very mature and kind person, and see how he reacted. And that's perfect. I mean, that's like the perfect response, right? So flipping it a little bit now to when you are in a relationship, is there a right time to post your significant other? I know from speaking from my experience, I put a lot of emphasis on certain events, like when they introduced me to their family or when they would post me hard launch on Instagram. I felt so good about myself. It's like this means something, but I also heard that from guys' perspective, they see it sometimes really different. Like it may not mean the same thing or have the same weight. So yeah, how do you both feel about that? Is there a right time? And also, should you be concerned when your long-term partner of say like a year doesn't post you yet? Like, where is the line?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. I don't really know if there's like a right time. I think that depends on the relationship, but it's kind of hard to get a photo of me or with me to post about me. So like I can understand maybe why a partner wouldn't really post me, just because I not much for photos. But then again, I feel like there's other ways than just photos to kind of post that you are in a relationship. Like, you know, posting like you guys are out to dinner or something, or like things like that. There's other ways to go about it. I do think that not posting it at all or not necessarily being transparent about having a partner on social media can be a red flag, but every circumstance is different. I don't think there's ever too early or too late. I mean, every relationship moves at different speeds.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, it depends obviously on the person. I think it's fine as long as they're not like actively avoiding it, or like there's a lot of just kind of intuition that you can say with a lot of these things that we're talking about. And this is another one where it's like if I'm posting, if it's just maybe like a story, so I don't know if you call that a soft launch or whatever, but like a story where I tag you in it, and you usually repost every story you're tagged in, but the one that I tag you in, you don't restory it. Like
Yeah.
that's okay.
Well, we're going to pivot a little bit. Some of these other questions are less about social media, but more about time spent together, how you would navigate the relationship, like during the relationship. So, one of the questions we had was how much time should you spend together versus apart? Like, what is considered healthy in you guys' perspective, and when does it become too much?
I'll come at it from the perspective of maybe you're serious, you're in a relationship, you're exclusive, but not living together. I think it really varies and depends on the couples. I think if you're spending no time together, definitely can be a red flag. But if you're not allowing space for your partner to have their individuality and doing their own hobbies or hanging out with their own friends, I think that's also not. So I don't think there's necessarily a matter of how much. It's just about the like flexibility to have both, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I like kind of how Paige said it's like you gotta have the option. Like you gotta have someone where you're in a relationship, honeymoon phase. It's always interesting trying to get out of there because you may have just spent the last, week together without any separation. But then you have your guys that are going to watch a football game at a bar, and you're like, I don't want them to come, but how do I say it?
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's the tough limbo of, hey, I'm gonna go hang out with my guy friends tonight. And that's where I think it really shows a maturity in a person. Because I want someone that's like, oh my gosh, thank God. Yes, I need my time. Like, that is, thank you. Go have fun. I'm gonna stay right here. Like, that's the kind of relationship I want to be in, where they're just as happy, kind of, that you're going out. And that also comes to the trust issue too. It's like, do I trust you to go to a bar with your guy friends? Like, if I didn't, then I would be, okay, where are you going? Who are you going to be with? Which, I mean, I get it. Girls ask those questions anyway, and they don't mean anything other than they're just curious. But it's more of like, can I come? Then it's like you don't want to say no because you don't want it to make it seem like you don't want to be with them, but yet you don't want to be with them, but yet it's not because you don't like them. It's because you need that
Right.
space. So kind of like Paige put it, having the flexibility of being able to do things separately. Now, I was in a relationship, my last relationship, which was very codependent, because I've learned this about myself. I'm a very codependent person. I love being with them. And when I was dating her, it was like we were pretty much living together with two different places.
Mhm.
And that's something where that would be, as much as I really enjoyed it, I think it didn't help because it's really just kind of put some unrealistic standards on the relationship where I'm like, I struggled, like, it was 6 months down the road and I struggled to tell her that I didn't want to hang out with her one night because well, the worst part is when you don't have a reason either. Like, you don't have plans, but you want to just sit at home alone and just like watch a show or something like that. Because then it's like, wait, why can't I be there? Why can't I come? And it's like, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I just physically want my own time. And I think that's where you can really gauge how, mature a person is and mature a relationship is when they can be like, you know what, that makes sense. Like, talk to me tomorrow or something like that.
I feel like allowing yourself to have time together and time away from each other really has to do with communication. I think you should be, to Ben's point, be able to communicate like, hey, we're going to spend this time together. But just as much as you have that same communication for like, this is how long I'm going to be away, you should have that same, like, this is how long I'm investing to be with you right now. Like, I'm going to come over today and spend the night. And then whatever. Obviously, I'm not saying you have to have your life planned and detailed by the minute by any means, but like,
It's
I think it's
one
communication.
on that. I was going to say the one thing that I've learned that is the easiest way to help a relationship grow is to literally one text is all it takes. You tell her who you're with, where you're going, how long you're going to be doing that. And then you say like, I love you, or like some compliment. I don't know if you're at the I love you stage yet, or say something cute, and then be like, I'll talk to you after. That one text with those 5 things saves so many things, whether it's just her going crazy, not knowing any, like, where you are. Like, that's something as guys, we don't think about. Because guys, a girl, like, you probably all have seen the like video where it's the guy that girl's like, oh, I haven't texted him for 3 hours. He's probably wondering if I'm dead or in a ditch or this or that. And then there's the picture of the guy who's sitting there watching football. He's like, huh, this is so nice. I've been so happy the last 3 hours. I wonder what's going on. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like Ben is just out here saving people's lives and relationships. Like, that is so true though. What about finances in a relationship? Okay. Let's just say you've been dating for a while, because obviously you wouldn't do finances early on, but let's say you've been dating for a while and it's a very serious relationship when you're living together. Do you combine finances? Do you talk about it together openly? Do you track it together and manage it together? Ben, maybe we start with you first this time.
yeah. And this is one where I have zero clue. This is one of those where I've made the decision that when I get to that level with someone, I am going to confront a professional, whether that be, because I think all marriages should have a marriage counselor. That's how I was raised. My parents had that. Both my brothers who are married, they had their counselors before getting married. And they also help with their finances. They help discuss how to do it. At least I think. I think I heard that somewhere. But even if they don't, then I'm going to find someone that knows how to best successfully do finances, because growing up in a household where money was something that my parents fought over a lot, I am dedicated to have that never be something that my kids will ever worry about me and my wife talking about.
And sorry, your ex-girlfriends, did you ask them about their credit score, or that?
Nope, I never asked about credit card. So funny enough, my last girlfriend, when I first started dating her, she said she made over 6 figures, which I thought was really cool. Had a really nice apartment and all this stuff. Ended up dating her a year and a half, and by the end of it, I found out she was in $60,000 worth of credit card debt. Not the
Oh
reason we
my
broke
gosh.
up at all,
Don't
but it
lie.
was one of those things where I was like, no, honestly, it was one of those things. So I'm into real estate and I flip houses and stuff. And I had just flipped a house and made, a substantial profit. And I'm like, we could flip a house together and she could get rid of all of her debt with only a few houses or something. Like I was trying to make a plan for if we did go that next level and like, get married or engaged, like I was making plans in my head of how we could help her get rid of that debt because at that point I know it's my debt too. So no, I
Interesting.
don't ask girls for their finance stuff. I feel like I have enough kind of intuition to tell where they're kind of at.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about ambition. How much is it to how much is it too much to push the other person? This could be in their career. This could be or it could be like things like hobbies, right? Like personal growth, professional growth, whatever it may be. How much is too much? Paige, maybe we start with you first.
I feel like I probably wouldn't invest too much time in someone who doesn't already have some sort of ambition. I find that to be like one of my number one quality. That might honestly be number one on the qualities of something I need. From past experience, like one of my longest relationships was almost 7 years, and him and I started dating when we were really young. And so, we kind of dated through that like time of you have to start thinking about like, what do you want to do for college? Like, what do you want to do as a career? And not saying that college is the path for everyone. Maybe it's like trade school or a specific career. And I remember, I always had like, I always knew what I wanted to do. Like, what I wanted to go to college for, all of that stuff, and that college was something I wanted to do. But my partner did not have that at all. And I remember like I signed him up for like classes at the community college. I would like do his homework, like
Ooh.
just trying to like get him to like want something like bigger than what like we were doing at that time. And like I said, I understand that's not for everyone, but it got to a point where I was like, you know what? We just don't have the same ambition or the same desires long term. And thinking back, maybe very mature of me that I made this decision at that point in time that I was like, I don't think this is going to be something I should invest longer in. So, like I tried that, like push the ambition, but I don't think you can really change someone's like feelings or opinions on ambition. But I do think that there are times when you can inspire your partner to be ambitious, because sometimes you're not at 100%. Maybe you're going through something, maybe your partner gets laid off, or they're having really bad like anxiety, depression, things like that, and they're just not feeling motivated. Like if it's not like something that they typically are doing and they're just like losing that motivation or ambition, then I think it's okay to kind of like push or try to be a support system. But I think there's times and places, but I don't think it's something that really works to try to change someone's feelings.
Right. Like you can't change them and you can't be doing their homework. It's not going to actually like drive anything within them to want to do this thing.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Ben, what about you?
Yeah, I don't think there's really ever too much. I feel like I'm a pretty ambitious person myself, and I've been in pretty good relationships where there's never been too much of pushing me to reach my goal, and vice versa. I think it can go the other way where they can be like, don't go and do this because I want you to stay in bed with me all day and not do anything. Or, I don't want you to move away because you have this great opportunity, but I don't want you to not be living here anymore. Or, I mean, that might be a different scenario, but like going on a trip for like, or doing something for months, like you'll be gone for a long time. I don't want you to because I want you here. Or just a little bit more kind of the opposite, where they're not pushing you to meet your full potential because they personally wouldn't gain anything from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I'll challenge this concept of ambition. Sabrina and I, we've talked about this. I So when I first came out of university, I was very, very ambitious. And it's not to say I'm not now, but I think my view on ambition has changed because I used to date a lot of people who are very, very ambitious, like very successful people who have this great like goal that they're working towards and they're like very passionate about it. And what I found is that a lot of those people who are so ambitious often don't have time for you. Like they are prioritizing their ambition and their, whether it's a professional goal or whatever, over you.
I think everyone should have their goals, right? And in a partnership, you should support each other and be a cheerleader for their goals. And ambition can come in different forms, right? You don't have to attach ambition to a job or to a title or to a promotion. I think it becomes a problem when you attach your worth to like a promotion, or I'll be happy when I have that promotion, or like I could be dating a carpenter who is incredibly passionate and excited and just wanting to maybe increase his remit or like work in different fields and increase his mastery or expand his mastery, whatever that is. Like I don't think the job itself is like the ambition. It can be, even if it's just maybe a passion project, maybe they're brewing beer and they really want to like grow that on the side. I think that's really hot when someone has like a hobby that they want to grow and just be better in. So that's my perspective. Ambition can come in so many different forms.
I agree with you, Sabrina, that ambition can be like outside of careers. I think even it could just be like, ambition and goals are really two in one. But one thing I'll note is that ambition with balance is what's attractive. I think that if you are someone who cannot balance your life between work and social and intimate and those things, then the ambition means nothing, then this means nothing. You know, you really have to have that balance for the ambition to be attractive. Because to your point that you made, if you are not having time, then it's maybe not as attractive to have an ambitious partner because they're not giving you any attention.
One of our last questions, and then we'll get into a more rapid fire section. All right, so what about family ties? How involved should one be with their partner's relationship? So let's say, how involved should you be in your partner's relationship with their family? And also, I want to extend this a little bit. What if your partner is a like daddy's girl, or like they're just like that close with moms or dads? What's you guys' perspective? Ben, how about you go first?
This one I probably won't be as similar as a lot of people because I was very, very fortunate to have a very great family life growing up, to the point where we're all still very close. To give you a little background, I have three brothers, so four of us total. Two of my three brothers live 5 minutes from both my parents. My parents are separated, but they both live literally 3 blocks from each other. And I live the furthest away, which is 15 minutes away. And then my third brother goes to school at the University of Minnesota, which is like also 15 minutes away from where my parents are. And then my dad's family specifically, his parents live 5 minutes from him, and he has 5 siblings, and 4 of the 5 siblings all live in the same town. So all live in like a 10-mile radius of each other. It's something where I think I'm open to not going home as much because obviously I'm a single guy, don't have many responsibilities. So it's one of those things where if I don't make it home for dinner, my parents are like, what's going on? Like, I don't really have a reason.
Right.
So it's kind of fluid in that way, but definitely need my family obviously to like my significant other. That's main because they're going to be my family forever. And I want them to like her. I never want any of that drama of like you see in TV shows where it's like, oh, I hate my in-laws or this or that. Like I want to be able to, love my in-laws and this and that. Of course, if my significant other doesn't like her own family, then that doesn't matter as much because she probably won't want to go see them as much. But again, it's one of those things where it's fluid, but definitely still want to be close to my family forever. And I definitely need a significant other that would support that. I would hope that the person I'm dating, as well as my mom, would be mature enough to be like, and comfortable enough with each other where they say, hey, that if it is something they think they need to talk about, I think they can be like, hey, like that upset me, or I don't agree with that, or something like that. Kind of like how mature adults handle, confrontation. They should be able to kind of discuss it. Now that's, easier said than done. And it's something that maybe it's because I don't have much experience with it, because all the significant others I've had have that situation hasn't arose. So yeah, so it's something I'm hoping I would handle right, but yeah, I don't know.
I want to push on that. Not Ben, not to put you on the spot. I know we're really pushing you here.
No, keep hitting
But
me.
I do think it is easier said than done, because I've had situations, or even now, like in my current relationship, where I have a great relationship with my like mother-in-law, but there are, of course, like just naturally, you grew up different, you're from different generations. So like, of course, there's going to be things that are just different. And I've had situations where I did not feel comfortable confronting this, like this person who's like in a different generation, also not my own mom. Like I would say that to my own mom, no problem. But I
Yeah.
would not say that to somebody else's mom, even if they're like related to me. Paige, what about you? Like if your partner is super, super close and they're like a mommy's mommy's boy type of thing, what's your perspective?
I mean, I think there's like definitely pros to that. I would sure hope that if my partner is close with their mom, they know how to treat a woman. Um,
Mhm.
they know how to respect, and they have some particular values. However, I think there's the boundaries as well. Like I don't want to fight for my partner's attention against anyone, even if it's their mom. It's kind of a fine line. Like I don't know. I heard this story. I told Sabrina about this. I heard this story about this mom who expected her son to buy flowers for her every time he bought flowers for his girlfriend, even if
Ugh.
it was her birthday.
Mhm. I will say, I think it's very much dependent on the person that's in the middle. So, like, say, it's my mom that my partner has some sort of issue with. I think my partner needs to come to me. Like, a lot of it is communication, but my partner needs to come to me with the problem, because it's a lot more okay for me to then go to my mom and build that boundary. And I think it's up to me to, one, like kind of sense that there's problems or like issues, like kind of prompt that conversation with my partner to like know what's going on, but then also to then go build that boundary, because I don't think like every issue that either like my partners had with my family or I've had with their family, we always went through the person rather than going directly. Because I feel like a lot of times directly, one is like kind of awkward. Like, how do you approach that situation?
Mhm.
Two, it sometimes ends poorly, where then that person is like, say them my mother-in-law, she'll be on tiptoes trying to navigate next time we're in that situation. Whereas if my partner approached her with the situation, one is a lot more comfortable, like she doesn't feel like she's being called out, but two, like he can help her understand how to navigate that, like, help ease the situation. Whereas if I come in, it's very like accusatory, she might feel like I'm accusing her. So at least what's worked for us is whoever's the middleman needs to step up and do something about the situation. Otherwise, it will like be swept under the rug type of thing.
I
Shout
agree
out to the
with
married
that.
woman here. Let's go.
Guys, I'm
Helping
just
us.
giving out wisdom left and
Yes.
Wisdom. Come
right for
on. Just
free.
spitting facts. I love it.
All right, you guys. Well, we're going to shift over to more of a rapid fire. This is going to be quick. We don't want too much of your answer. We just want to know, is this a red flag or a deal breaker? If we don't align, then we'll kind of get into it and we'll hash it out. Okay. So let us know, is this a red flag? Is this a deal breaker? Maybe it's not either. Let us know. All right. Well, I'm going to start first and then I'll pass it over to Sabrina. So the first thing is, your partner has previously cheated. Paige, you go first.
Maybe.
Ooh, okay. Okay, but don't explain. Ben, what about you?
Red flag.
Okay, Sabrina.
It's a red flag. It's not a deal breaker. I want to know what they've done since then. I also want to know what the timing was. It when they were young? I want to know more context, and I want to know if they understood that it was wrong and what they've done to overcome it.
Okay, well, Paige, now you have to explain why yours is a maybe.
Why mine's a maybe. I honestly, a lot for what Sabrina said. I think it really depends on the context. I mean, did you like some people like when you're like, oh, have you ever cheated? They're like, yeah, I cheated. And then you found out like they kissed some other girl and they were all in the 8th grade. Like, I'm sorry, but like, no, not a red flag because you kissed some other girl in the 8th grade. Like, not really, you know. That's like kind of where the maybes lie. I do think people have the ability to change and grow, and I am notorious forgiver. And so mine's just a maybe because it really depends on the context.
Okay. No more information needed. If the other person only has friends of the opposite sex. Paige, we'll always start with you first.
Red flag.
Ben.
Neither.
Ooh, Sabrina.
Only as friends, it would raise some questions. So I would say red flag, yeah.
Okay, red flag for me as well. Ben, please explain.
I would have it as a red flag as well if I was a girl and my boyfriend only had girlfriends.
Okay.
But as a guy, I've dated girls, granted, they have girls that are friends, but their best friends are their group of 4 guys. And I get along with them super well to the point where I'm like, I end up dating them. Because I think guys are a lot less, I don't want to say less complicated, but they don't play games as much as if I was a girl dating a guy, because I feel like the girlfriends of the guy are all trying to kind of find a way to swoop in. They're kind of looking at the girl like, is she good enough for our guy, like this or that? But like if the girl's guy friends and I meet, we're like, oh, what's up, bro? Like we could become like I ended up liking her friends more than her.
I've had a lot of guy friends tell me that like they'll be friends with a girl because they have interest in them or they like thought they were attractive. So it's you would question maybe if any of those girls that they're friends with are like people that they want around them for other reasons.
Interesting. Interesting. Sabrina, anything to add there?
No, just hot take that I don't trust girls that only have guy friends. That's just as Ben was speaking, like I get it, like I'm sure your roommate has reasons and not calling her out particularly. I've noticed some things in my circle and I just don't trust them. But yeah, like guys, many guys, not Ben, but other guys, it's hard to trust them when they're mostly surrounded by all these girls. So yeah.
All right. A lot of hot takes from that last comment. So we'll let our audience judge you guys themselves. All right, next one. Partner never laughs at your jokes. Red flag or deal breaker? Paige?
I don't know. I mean, like, I think I do some stupid stuff. So if you're not
You're
laughing
funny.
at me, then deal breaker. Deal breaker. Okay. I'm going deal breaker.
Ben?
Yeah, I'm the funniest person on the face of the earth. So if they're not laughing, I'm kidding. But no, it is a deal breaker though. Because to not laugh at any of my jokes, like, come on.
Yeah. Same.
Okay, same. No information needed. Having an extreme dislike towards food or cuisine that you love or grew up with or like is your culture, something that's very important for you. Red flag or deal breaker?
Deal breaker, unless you have an allergy. I had to add that.
Okay.
Neither for me.
Sabrina?
It's a deal breaker. Yeah, being from Germany, you better eat my Spätzle or else. So
Deal breaker for me. I'm Chinese. If you don't like Chinese food, there's something
I
wrong with
was I
you.
was just gonna ask. I wanted to know what the foods were that are deal breakers if someone doesn't like. Okay, so we got Chinese food, we got whatever Sabrina said. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce it.
German food.
Yeah.
Mine,
And
mine is just like I love cooking so much. And if
Mm.
you're gonna sit there and be like, I don't like onions, and now I can't put it in like half of the things I cook, or like, if you just don't like something, it's just I want to be able to cook whatever I'm gonna cook whenever I want to cook it. Don't make
Mhm.
a bet. You don't have to like it necessarily, but you better suck it up and eat it.
Same.
This,
I dated a vegan for a week and it did not go well. So
oh,
broke up.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I will say though, like, maybe this is me being too judgmental, but if you don't like the food that I eat, that's your pro you should be trying new food. Like
Mm.
it
Yeah.
suggests something else, right? It's not just about the food itself. It's like a lot of it is like, are you open to new cuisines? Are you like worldly? Are you right? Like you don't have to know everything, but it's like more about being open, willing to try and willing to like appreciate your culture. All right. Going out too much, particularly drinking too much when they go out. Paige.
Red flag.
Okay, Ben.
yeah. It's between a red flag and deal breaker. Depends how too much we're talking.
Come
Mm.
home drunk.
How often
But
though?
every weekend,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Uh,
I'll be honest, I kind of love like if like the last relationship I was in when she would go out with like a girls' night and like I'm going to bed at 11. I know I'm gonna be woken up at like 2:30 a.m. to someone who's very like flirty and all that stuff, which is really fun. But
Yeah.
but if that's every weekend and it's again, honestly also I've put a little asterisk too, if they're a sloppy drunk, that is deal
mm,
breaker.
Mm.
Where it's like every week, every time they go out, I'm gonna have to go pick them up, like carry them into the car, take them home, carry them home. Sloppiness. If they're a responsible drunk, I think that changes things.
Yeah.
okay. Sabrina.
I subscribe to the differentiation here, the sloppy versus non. Like if you're slurring your words, can't even walk, like that's a problem. But yeah, just having a little bit of a drunken night together or when they come home, like that's fine. Also, none of the Minnesotans are drinking this month, and I have to give a quick plug for Athletic Brewing. Not that we're sponsored, but we should be. Great brand, love them, NA stuff. So
All right. What about being overly competitive? Paige. Think about this in any way this could manifest in whatever way you think.
I want to say red flag, but I also want to say deal breaker.
Okay, well, think on that. Ben, what about you?
It's funny because I'm gonna call myself out here. A girl stopped talking to me because I was too competitive. So it was her deal breaker, funny enough.
Okay, but competitive in what sense?
My high school was playing her high school in the state championship game, and her high school beat my high school,
Eighth
and she was
grade.
getting all. It was not eighth grade. It was college, and we were going back to our high school because they're playing. Anyway, I don't need to explain it. Yeah, and I was actually upset, and I said some words I probably shouldn't have, and she said, "Don't talk to me again," and walked away, and we never talked again.
Listen, the
Hey.
fact that Ben is still defending that this was high school like, slash college, we can tell he's very
It was a
competitive.
high school state championship football game. We were in college going back and we watched the game and yeah.
After listening to Ben's, I'm gonna make mine a deal breaker also. I'm sorry, Ben, but like
Okay, but you know how competitive I am. And I
oh
know
yeah,
it's not the
totally.
most attractive thing. I know it's maybe my
No,
red flag or
I'm
apparently deal breaker.
I'm kidding. I'm gonna go with red flag for it, but I think that there's a fine line between like, is it banter or is it like actual like
Mm-hmm.
competitiveness?
Mm-hmm. Like
Right.
I need to one up you in these
Yes.
situations.
Like I love a good banter. Let's
Mhm.
totally
Yeah.
like, we have different teams. Heck yeah, we're gonna be competitive.
Yeah.
I agree with Paige, and just like the line I think for me is when you make it personal, or when you insulting, and just when you're a sour loser, like I just can't have those.
Yeah.
Or you never let me win. Rude. I'm kidding.
So this is how we're all going to find out that all four of us are extremely competitive. We are the red
Yeah.
flag for other
We
people.
are the
Good
red
thing-
flag.
Yeah, we are.
Good thing we're all in the same kickball team.
Yeah, that's why we are.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. What if your partner is allergic to your pet, which maybe is different than don't like your pet? Paige?
I know I'm not supposed to give like context to this, but I'm allergic to my cat. So if you can't suck it up, deal breaker. Like deal breaker. Because I'm not getting rid of my pet. Yeah. Deal breaker.
Okay.
Allergic, deal breaker. Don't like, deal breaker. Deal breaker.
All right. Ben?
Yeah, deal breaker for me as well.
Same.
Same. My dog is my daughter. It is what it is. I live for her and I make money for her. So yeah.
There it is.
All right. Ooh, bad table manners. So chewing with mouth open. Like there's a variety of different things that falls under this, but gross table manners. Paige?
Red flag.
Deal breaker.
Sabrina?
It's a strong ick with red flag. Yeah.
Wait, who said deal breaker? I forget.
I did. Yeah.
All right, well, explain yourself.
Well, I don't know. It's something where if I'm disgusted by how you're handling yourself at the table, I don't have the best manners. So if I'm noticing that you don't have good table manners, there's a big issue there and I'm I don't know if it's sensory is like the right word, but like if someone smells bad or their breath smells, or, it's a lot of sensory things where, especially if it's like a first date where I don't have feelings enough to look over these things, then yeah, I'm deal breaker.
Do you think that it's something they can change over time?
I think at this age, if no one's told them and they haven't changed it yet, then that's probably not going to change anywhere in the near future.
Yeah.
I'm not
All
gonna
right.
let a good man go by just because he chews with his mouth open. I mean, I'll close my eyes during dinner.
But first date, yeah. So I'm just shutting a freaking Bugs Bunny over here, like chewing on it. Really?
Interesting. No more context needed. We're letting people judge for themselves. All right. Well, last question for me, and then I'll pass it over to Sabrina. This one's a hot one. Saying I love you on the first date. Paige.
I'll say red flag.
Red
Okay.
flag.
Sabrina?
Burgundy flag.
What is yours?
A burgundy
Burgundy.
flag.
Is that just a darker red?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that mean it's closer to deal breaker, or it's
Yeah.
almost okay? And then beige is where it's like almost
Yeah, beige
red.
will be more. Yeah. Sorry, we should have come up with these definitions beforehand. Sorry.
It's all right.
Apologies.
We're here now.
Wait, why is everybody so okay with that?
Canceled.
I
Oh,
change it. I'm going deal breaker.
I
The more
think I might
about it,
change mine too.
I'm putting mine in the position. Originally, I was going to defend saying I'm a hopeless romantic. I think it's cute, but I'm literally thinking of the best first date I've ever had. And I'm sitting there like, if she would have like sat in my car at the end of that and said she loves me, I still would have been like, where?
Yeah. I'm turning mine to the darkest color red, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm very glad I clarified because I was gonna say deal breaker and I was gonna be the only person. And I was like, how are you guys okay with this? This is like, this is not a rom-com where you guys have been in love but just never
My
told
life's
each
a
other.
rom-com, Jane.
I'm
I want
still
my life to
expecting
be a
mine to be.
rom-com.
Yeah, there was this 1% that no, but I'm changing it to deal breaker. It's not okay.
Yeah.
There he is. Good job, Jane. You've reconvinced us all.
All right, well, Sabrina, go ahead. I know you have some questions.
Yeah, moving us along. When someone flirtatiously speaks with other men or women of the opposite sex, I guess.
Deal breaker.
Depends where we are at in the relationship. If that
Deal breaker
What
for
if
me.
you're full on exclusive?
full on exclusive, If it's beginning of being full on exclusive, red flag. If we're, a couple months in, neither.
Okay. Deal breaker for me.
Moving on.
And Jane?
Deal breaker.
Oh, okay.
Mm-mm.
Jane and Sabrina are the people that test the guys they're talking to, be like, so if I was another girl at a bar and they want them to spit in their face.
No, when you're with me, you better seek your validation from us or from yourself, but not from other women. So sorry.
Ooh,
Mhm.
wow.
I'm with you
Yeah.
there.
Wow.
Yeah,
that
clear
That for the
lines.
people in the back, Sabrina.
That's why I'm single. 'Cause people are just not agreeing with that. Okay, so partner doesn't have any friends or social life.
Deal breaker?
Deal breaker, because that is exactly what happened in my last relationship, and I would never do it again.
Fair enough.
Deal breaker.
Yeah, deal breaker. Speaks honestly without a filter.
Red flag.
Mm.
Ben?
There's so many situations because I want them to be comfortable to speak their mind, but like not in front of my parents at their meeting for the first time. So I would say in that situation, red flag.
Okay.
Oh. Without a filter, deal breaker for me. Because you can speak honestly using a filter. Like, I feel like you could be respectful of people, because sometimes when people who don't speak with filter, it's like very offensive and very rude, but they think they're doing you a favor by being so honest and so blunt. And I'm like, you didn't have to say it like that. You could have opened it a different, you know what I mean? Like a lot of it is like empathy, and I don't know. It's maybe between a red flag and deal breaker, but leaning more. It's the burgundy, if
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, for me as well. And you make a good point with, especially since 2020, like in general, just being more mindful about how you speak to different people. And yeah, now I'm like cringing actually when I remember some of my exes, how they just spoke about certain, whether it's race or just without any filter. And back then I'd overlooked that, and now I would not. So
If it was things like that, deal breaker for sure. But I think Ben makes a good point. The context really matters here. I mean, if you're just like have no filter and accidentally told me like, oh man, I really gotta poop right now. Like, I don't care. Like if that's the no filter, like thanks for letting me know, babe. But like
yeah, it depends. Absolutely. All right. What if they don't have hobbies similar to yours?
Deal breaker?
Deal breaker.
deal breaker.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think it's
No.
probably a red flag for me.
I used to say red flag for that, but I feel like if you can't find any commonality, it's really hard to maintain a relationship.
Yeah.
I've tried to make those kinds of relationships work, and it's tough.
Yeah, you gotta have something, like one thing
Yeah.
that you can bond
Yeah.
over and spend time with.
And I'm
together.
looking at these
That's
things
fair.
as like, deal breaker is I don't want a relationship with you, but it doesn't mean I'm not friends with people that are like this.
Yeah. But
Right.
also, ideally, there's not 100% the same, because I want some things for myself.
For sure, for sure. Oh, always plays the victim card.
Deal breaker.
Deal
Deal
breaker.
breaker.
Deal
breaker.
breaker. All right, so this one might be less controversial, but calls their exes crazy.
Deal breaker.
Red flag.
Deal breaker.
Deal breaker. Ben.
I mean, they might be crazy. Guys are crazy. Now you gotta just explain why they're crazy so that I agree with you.
Okay.
You know what, Ben? If we're putting it in that context, then I agree with you. If a woman is saying it, red flag. If a man is saying it, deal breaker.
Yes. Yes.
Love it.
So I think if the person actually is, we'll say, quote unquote, crazy, I think there are more mature, better ways to express that to a potential partner than just saying, oh, she's crazy, or oh, she's obsessed with me, or she just like this or that. Like some of those things are like, there are way more mature ways to go about it. Because if you're going right to like using offensive terms or like, you know, trying to make somebody else look bad to someone, you're probably not telling them the whole story of, you know, why they might be giving that behavior. Like maybe you're still talking to them.
Mm.
Yeah. The verbiage, I think, matters a lot.
Also, if I do think there is a difference between men and women calling their previous partners crazy. But also, if you call your previous partner crazy, if we don't ever work out, you're also going to call me crazy. So, what's going
Unless
on?
the reason is that they actually were crazy.
You know what? Yeah, maybe I am crazy.
But
So
like Paige,
worth
but
it.
like, but like Paige said, though, you can go about it describing it a different way, a more mature way.
Well, I think something else you have to think about though is, are they calling all of their exes crazy?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a pattern, because I've dated guys who have told me, oh, my ex was crazy. And then to your point, once we broke up, then I was the crazy one. It's like, that's just like a pattern of theirs, is that it's always the other person and they're not really reflecting in themselves. And I think that's why it can definitely be a red flag.
Yeah.
But I think it's a deal breaker.
And I think we have to take some responsibility for ourselves. Like that's what I learned the older I got. Like I wanted to call my ex crazy all the time because I thought 100% he's crazy, but I also attracted that partner. So the more interesting question is, why did I attract that person? Why was I with them for so long? So like taking a little bit of ownership, I think, can show that yes, they may have been crazy, but also why were you with them? And like now, like where, in what stage of your life are you at in now that you might not be attracting that level of craziness, if that makes sense.
I think you have to be willing to also like look inwards of like maybe why this person acted that way. Like it might, you have to be willing to take some responsibility. Like most people, like most average people aren't just going to like have a reaction for no reason. You know, usually it's something that we do that like stimulates it. So, you know, you have to be like mature enough to look within yourself. And that's why I say like there's different ways to say it. You know, I'll admit I've definitely done and said some maybe quote unquote crazy things, but like it doesn't necessarily make me a crazy person. But you know, I'll admit maybe I shouldn't have reacted to things that I've reacted to. You know, it's no one's perfect.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, Paige. Like someone probably could have called me crazy in that relationship too as a bystander because I think he made me crazy, but then again, I have to take some ownership of that too, how I reacted. Oh, look at us grow. All right. So last one, guys. I know we are a little bit over, but this has been so exciting and interesting. So they care about your body count.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter for me.
Oh, I don't know. Burgundy for me.
Yeah, it's a red flag, but I want to know why it bothers them. And also, are they letting me know their body count? Like it should be at least like a two-way street.
But also it's one of those things where I'm saying it doesn't matter, because if they are bothered by my body count, then don't be with me. Like I'm not going to lie about my body count because that's, you know, who I am.
But Ben, what about, is there a number that would deter you from being?
That's what I thought this question kind of meant, was they like, if your other person had a high body count, is that a deal breaker?
You can go, yeah, I'm just now also looking at the other side. But yeah, would there be a number that would throw you off? Like, oh shit, no, that's not good.
Yes, but personally, it's got to be high. I'll just say that. Like if it's in like the hundreds, then I'm like, okay, that's not going to be there. I mean, but you know, everyone lives their life differently. It depends who you are as a person right now versus, you know, who you maybe were in college.
All right. All right.
I'll say that just because I'll just give some more preference to that. I thought I was going to be hard, like stop, like 10 is too much kind of thing. But then I fell in love with a girl that had a very high body count in college and became, you know, a mature adult and things like that. So I've learned that I can get over it. So
do people really actually care about that still? I feel like that's like,
I heard.
I'm surprised that like people really care about that. Like I can understand if you're somebody who like maybe is like saving yourself and you are preferred someone that's also saving themselves to marriage or something. Like that's like a different conversation. But like I don't really care what the number is. Like if you might care about like who, if you know who some of the people are, but like it'd be more like I care about like the who on that list if I know who they
Yeah,
are, like
that makes
than the
yeah,
how many.
that's
I
big
heard more
actually,
guys
Paige. I'm
like
with you there. If it's like a red flag or deal breaker of someone on their body count or multiple people, then I'm like, okay, yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, that's probably the more interesting question. But I did hear that a lot of guys have that stigma of like, oh, this girl, if she's over a certain number, then I don't trust her, stuff like
Yet
that.
they still complain when they're starfishing.
Yeah,
What the heck?
When they're
yeah.
What do you
starfishing,
want?
what
Pick,
is
pick your
starfishing?
poison. That's when
What is-
I think that's what they call it when the girl just lays there. I don't know. I've never
Oh, so you're
been.
saying you need a high body count to be good at sex, Paige?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that first timers might not have that same ability as 100 times. But 100 timer maybe is not good either.
Well,
I
so
wouldn't, I don't know.
here's my rebuttal.
I'm
This is where
advocating
my-
for both sides.
This is where my head goes. It's like, well, or are they just really bad that they have to get to the number 100?
Oh,
and no
yeah.
one's laid it
Good
down.
point.
It's like, because what if you're
Ooh.
really good? What doesn't that mean that the first person you do it with falls in love and is like, okay, like
Yeah, but
that's
if they have a low body count too and they do that thing, then you know it was only with that person. That's where they learned it. So that could bring
honestly,
up a
if
whole
you do
other
that-
stem of
I'll just say this: the best times I've ever had were with girls that had long relationships.
yeah.
Like a girl that just not just got out of, but like had a boyfriend for 2 years, like months before, like because the boyfriend kept him for 2 years, and I guarantee you, if they were bad in bed,
Kept 'em.
they would not have kept them for that long.
Honestly, the only sex I want to be thinking about with my partner is ours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen. Well, with that, I think that's a great closing. Jane and I both thank you so much for spending time with us today. You've been so open and candid and raw. And before we go, let our audience know where they can find you, any exciting projects that you're working on that you'd like to plug away, please.
Instagram at Ben Mezzenga. Not sure if they'll have my name written anywhere, but it's Mezzenga.
Oh, we will write that, and your DMs will be full. So
Oh yeah,
Amazing. Yeah.
Ben's gonna be getting all the
That's the
DMs.
project I'm working on, finding a significant other. So if you guys know anyone, single and ready to mingle.
Ben and I are taking applications.
Just know I'm very competitive and I love my mother. So.
You got a pretty good idea of both of you today. So I love it. Paige?
Yeah, Ben and I are both taking applications for spouses in our DMs on Instagram after we talked about DMing being an ick. Just kidding.
When you're single,
Be
it's
single,
fine, though.
please, everyone.
If you're single,
If
only
they have a
single
girlfriend,
people.
slide on
or
through.
boyfriend.
Yes, if you're single, slide on through. If not, bye. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at pkibby, PKIBBI.
That's right. Awesome. Well, dear listeners, thank you so much for being here with us today. We always want to hear from y'all. If this resonated, please email us at whereisthelinepod@gmail.com. And yeah, if you have any reactions to these hot takes, I would love to hear. Also, I'm curious to hear from our audience, what is your biggest red flag? So definitely DM us on that and subscribe to wherever you listen to us. We are on Apple, Spotify, and Google.